So this is what my dream car looks like after sitting for 3 years. And this is what it looks like now. Hey guys, welcome back to Speed Envy. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what I had to do to take my engine bay back to its original condition. Alright, let's go ahead and get this video started. Here's a time lapse of everything I had to do to get this cleaned up. You might be surprised what I ended up using to do this. No, I didn't use a pressure washer, and no, I didn't use any fancy chemicals. But I got started by picking everything out by hand, before I hit it with a leaf blower or water. Honestly, if you guys ever find yourself in a position where you're having to clean up a rat's nest, it might be a good idea to actually wear a mask and some waterproof gloves. I want to say this entire process took me roughly 2 hours. I spent probably an hour picking everything out, and then another hour hitting it with a leaf blower, along with washing it down with some water and degreaser, and then washing it down again with the water hose. My original intention was to clean it up and then actually pull it around using my truck, but unfortunately I didn't really have anyone around to help me out with that. So I ended up deciding to just try and get the thing running, which actually poses a couple of issues. One, this thing's been sitting for 3 years, so it's got 3-year-old bad gasoline. And two, if you look in the back of the engine bay, there's a straight fuel line there in the corner. The whole reason for that is because back when I originally removed the supercharger, the fuel line had a different placement than any LS, naturally aspirated fuel line, or I should say fuel rail. And because of that, I had to actually borrow a fuel line off my old C6 Vet to hook up the fuel line just to get this thing running back then. But I since then sold that Vet. I took that fuel line back, so I had to come up with a way to connect the fuel line to pressurize the fuel rail just to be able to get any fuel in this thing. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We're gonna actually circle back around to that. The next step was really, as you can see, there's a lot of caked dirt in the engine bay still that the leaf blower wasn't able to tackle. So instead of using a hand brush, which I didn't have, I ended up deciding just to use a broom. Hopefully my wife doesn't get mad about this, but I did actually end up breaking this broom. So all you got to do is kind of push down. Don't have to use too much force. Just agitate the dirt to break it loose. Because after you go through the whole engine bay, you'll see what a difference going back over the engine bay with a leaf blower actually made. You could do this a couple times if you might have missed some spots, but this was adequate enough for me. One more thing I failed to mention too was that before you even get started with all this, you need to make sure you have every port and opening plugged off, taped off, whatever it takes. Because if you do this and you have any openings to your intake manifold, you're gonna find yourself getting some debris or dirt in the engine, which is not good. As you can see here, I decided to take the throttle body off just to give it a once over inside and look for anything that might have made it past the throttle blade, because I didn't take enough precautions with that. And I did find some dirt that made it just past the throttle blade, and somehow I found a beetle in there too. Not sure how that got in there, but got it cleaned out, bolted the throttle body back on. Not completely torqued, just snug enough to get it to seal. And now that that's all out of the way, it's actually time to try and get this thing running. Place the connectors back in place, make sure everything's still plugged and sealed, check for oil, start wiping off the fuel line connections because they actually had some debris caked on them still. And as I mentioned earlier, we still got to get the fuel system hooked up. So what I did is I dug around through my extra fittings and hoses I had in a box. I consider myself somewhat of a pack rat, which comes in pretty clutch sometimes. So I went and grabbed this piece of fuel line I had in a box, had a couple of fittings, and then I sized them up to figure out that it was 3/8 fuel line. I went back, heated the line up with a lighter, spliced the other one into it to kind of get a nice tight fit. I don't really expect to make this a permanent solution. This is just to get it moving around and pressurized. Once I got everything hooked up, felt pretty confident it was going to work. After this, I decided to give it a few key cycles to pressurized the fuel system with the fuel pumps. Didn't find any leaks, so I called that good and moved on. And as you can see, this is the original stock air intake box. The reason I need it is because this is a mass airflow sensor car, and to have any chance of it actually running, I ended up temporarily connecting it to the throttle body in a position where I could reach with a mass airflow sensor connection. And since it was temporary, I had to be extra careful to make sure that it wasn't going to come off and rub on the accessory drive while it was spinning, because the last thing I want to do is damage some more components and just add to my laundry list of things that I need to buy still. After this was all installed, I gave the engine bay a once over, made sure everything was connected. I had the intention of scanning this thing to see what all fault codes came back, but it ended up not being necessary. It did only take me a couple attempts to get it running with some brake clean, and coming up here soon I'm actually going to play the audio. It may not sound like much to you guys, but this thing has been sitting for 3 years, and it was very motivating to hear this for me. I'm not even kidding, guys. That sound of that exhaust was music to my ears. It's been so long since I've worked on one of my projects. I'm sure you could tell that it wasn't running very well, but that's just a mixture of 3-year-old gasoline and some brake clean. Probably some faulty readings too. Next step was to start washing this thing down. This is a way too much video of me trying to get one bottle of degreaser working. I eventually gave up and just went and grabbed another one. But first thing I did was pre-soak the engine bay with a garden hose. Second was to add some degreaser to it. And as you could see, I wasn't really cheaping out on the degreaser. I probably used half a bottle on this engine bay. I just didn't want to do this again. I wanted to get it right and make it look good the first time. Another reason was I'm going to be crawling under this thing, and I really don't want to get any dirt and debris falling down on my eyes. So I really did want this engine bay to be spotless. Next step after this was to bust out the broom again, start agitating everything with degreaser on it, trying to really work the degreaser into the smaller crevices and stuff. I probably spent a good 10 to 15 minutes scrubbing this thing with a broom and letting all the degreaser soak into whatever was left of the grime and dirt in the engine bay. This next part I feel like I enjoyed just way too much, because it's been years since I've been able to wash my car. The downside though was that as I was washing it, there was almost like a glitter that wasn't coming off the paint. I took a closer look and it almost looks like paint overspray. So I'm not sure if it was something that happened to it while it was parked at our old house. Maybe the neighbor was painting something outside, or I'm not sure if it's maybe some kind of a chemical that got on it from the crop spraying they do around us at our new place. But I did manage to get some of it scraped off with my nail, so that does tell me that I'll be able to address it in the future with just a simple cut and buff. I am wrapping this thing anyways, but I do want the paint to be clean and back to its original condition before I decide to put some vinyl wrap over it and cake it onto the paint. The final step in this entire process was just getting the leaf blower out again. I did burn through a couple of battery cycles doing this, but it's a sped up way to dry off the engine bay and the body, get all the water off, and then I kind of just let the weather do its thing for whatever was remaining. That pretty much concludes this entire process, guys. Thanks for sticking around. I'm gonna post up those before and after pictures one more time so you guys can see the difference this whole thing made. And it really doesn't take much. If you got a leaf blower, if you got degreaser, if you got a broom and some gloves, you can do this exact same thing to your car, whether it's in as bad a condition as mine was in, or you just want to clean it up to look a little better for a car show or something. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for sticking around and watching my videos, guys. I appreciate all the feedback. A lot of you guys have been commenting, asking for more content. I'm actually going to get better about consistently uploading for updates on this project. And some of you have even reached out via message saying you're excited for me to continue this journey, and even send some motivational words, because I'm sure some of you could tell how bummed out I was on the last video after walking up to that bird's nest, rat's nest, whatever it was. So please guys, follow, like, and subscribe to this video and Speed Envy. And I'm so excited to start tearing this thing apart tonight to give you guys some more update videos. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you.